performed at the Kennedy Center, so unlike every other comedian you've seen, I don't need your validation, so maybe I'll try some new things, maybe not. You know what's really cool? You know, I've been to several Latido shows before, and I've seen Jonathan perform some amazing piano accompaniments throughout the years, and it's so nice that he's the feature and I get to know him a little bit better through his art. So just shout out to you. I'm really enjoying it. Really enjoying it. As Reggie said, I'm a stand-up comedian. I'm also the storyteller, and I think that's what I'm going to do tonight. I think I'm going to tell a story instead of doing stand-up. Okay? Do you guys ever visit any storytelling shows in DC? Okay. Oh darn. I was hoping you'd have no experience, so you wouldn't compare me to something amazing. But I'll do my best. Do my best. I think we can all, relate to the feeling of wanting to fit in, right? And you never want to fit in more than middle school. That's it. 6th grade is make or break. Unfortunately, it's like you're 12 years old, and it sets you up for the rest of your life, unfortunately. And I wanted to fit in when I was about 12 years old, man. I wanted to be cool. I wanted to be on the basketball team. I wanted to wear all the coolest clothes. I wanted to not carry all my books around in my book bag at one time. I had some lofty ideals, but I unfortunately wasn't anything like that. I was short and chubby, and I carried all my books around. I wasn't on the basketball team, but I was in the school orchestra, and man, could I fiddle. Yeah, it was pretty cool. I got to carry my violin around all the time. And unfortunately for me, I went to a school that was predominantly white. There was some black kids there, and as a light-skinned black person, for me that meant I really didn't know where I fit in. I didn't really fit in with the white kids. I didn't really fit in with the black kids, but man, I wanted to. I wanted some friends. I wanted people to like me. And there was one person in particular who went to my school who was just the epitome of cool. And man, I wanted to be just like her when I grew up into the 8th grade. Her name was Katrina Owens. Wow. Katrina Owens. Doesn't that sound like possibility? She was amazing. She, of course, she was on the basketball team. She was so beautiful, and she was tall for an 8th grader. She was like 5'5", I guess. I guess that's tall for an 8th grader. She was just always wore the hottest clothes and stuff. And everybody loved her. And one thing that I thought that she had that I wish I had was this beautiful dark skin. And it just was so beautiful to me. She had this, just essence of beauty around her. And with that, she transcended everything, right? She was friends with all the white kids. She was friends with the black kids. All the coolest guys in school would always be walking her to class. I remember watching her walk through the hallways, and she always walked with like this elegance, this effortless elegance, and all these guys would be around her and they'd be like, Katrina, check out my new shoes, aren't those cool? Hey, Katrina, I just read this new joke on the internet. It's probably what you haven't heard because the internet was really new back then, so there were jokes on there that you hadn't heard. Because the greatest compliment you ever could have gotten in my middle school was Katrina Owens looking at you and being like, you stupid, right? You stupid was the greatest compliment that you can get from Katrina Owens, and oh man, I wanted Katrina Owens to call me stupid. Like, I don't think you guys understand like how cool she was. She always had like the coolest clothes in school. You guys remember Old Navy Performance, please? Yeah, Old Navy, oh yeah, Old Navy Performance, please, yeah. Katrina Owens had Old Navy Performance, please, before the dog was like, you should get Old Navy Performance, please. She had it. She had it. You guys remember Old Navy Tech Vest, right? Yes. She had Old Navy Tech Vest before Old Navy had Old Navy Tech Vest. So I guess she just stayed in Old Navy because she was always in the flyest stuff. And I remember this one trend in particular hit when I was in middle school. It was the puff coat trend. You guys remember puff coats? There were two different styles. There was the men's puff coat, which had a collar, and it was big, and it was long. It went past the waist. And then there was the women's puff coat, which was a little bit different. It had like a little cinched waist. It had a cuff at the waist so you could show off your butt. And then it was puffy, and then it had a hood on it, and then around the hood was faux fur. And everybody had these. Like, I remember that, you know, there were black ones, there were navy, there was red, and there was that pop and yellow color. I don't know if you guys were into that. But Katrina Owens had one. She had a white one. The only white one I've ever seen. It was perfect for her. It was pristine. I know I could never pull off a white one because I would get like high C on it before sixth period. It would be ruined. But I remember seeing her in this puff coat. I really wanted one. So I talked to my mom. I was like, Mom, please can we go to the store and get me a puff coat? It's getting cold out there, and also I want to look really cool. She was like, okay, you do need a new coat, let's go to the mall. So we go to the mall, my mother and I, and the puff coats are so popular that every store we go to, they're sold out. We go to Old Navy, they don't have them. We go to some other store, LLB, they don't have them. We go to another store, they don't have them. We finally end up in the Gap. And the Gap is also sold out of puff coats. But my mother, getting on in years, she was like, I'm not walking to another store in the mall. My knees are telling me that you're getting a coat from the Gap. Pick one that you like. So unfortunately there were no puff coats, so I was like, fine, I'll look around. So I went off to the right side of the store, my mother went off to the left side of the store. I ended up seeing a coat that I kind of liked. It wasn't a puff coat, it was kind of canvasy, but it did have a cinched waist, and it did have a hood, but the hood didn't have faux fur. But I tried on a medium, and the medium fit pretty well. But before I could call my mom over to come see the medium and how it fit, she called me over to the other side of the store because she had talked to the associate at Gap, and the associate had gone to the back of the store and brought out the last puff coat in the entire mall. And because it was the last puff coat in the entire mall, it was the ugliest puff coat in the entire mall. And first off, it wasn't a women's cut coat, it was a masculine coat. So it was like, it would have gone past my waist. It didn't have one of those cool hoods with the faux fur. And it wasn't like one color. It was a two-tone puff coat, right? So it was black from the collar to the shoulders, and then it was red everywhere else. And I said, Mom, I don't want this one. I have one that I want to show you. Let me bring it over. She said, that one's too masculine. Try this one on. Now, because it was the last puff coat in the store, it was also a 2XL. So I put it on, and it looks like I'm wearing like a puffy triangle dress. Like if Tim Gunn were there, he'd be like, put a belt on it. It still wouldn't have worked. Still wouldn't have worked. But my mom made some actual sense. She was like, I'm not going to buy you a coat that fits now when you're 12 years old and you're going to grow out of it in 6 months. So I said, fine. So that's the puff coat we got. I hated it. I tried not to wear it to school, but she forced me. The first day I wear it to school, I've got my book bag, I've got my violin case, and I'm getting on the bus. And the first bad omen was that when I sat in the bus seat, because the puff coat was so big, because I had all my books in my book bag, and because I had my violin case, no one else could sit with me on the bus. Well, like no one wanted to sit with me on the bus anyway, but I liked having the open seat just in case somebody was feeling charitable. So I rode the bus and I was lonely. And I get to school, and I do what I usually do. I drop my violin case off down to the orchestra room so I don't have to carry it around for the rest of the day. And then I go to my locker, and I'm thinking, okay, this coat is really ugly, it's so way too big, and if I take it around with me to the rest of class, I'll need an extra seat because it's the size of a pudgy 6th grader. Let me see if I can put it in my locker for the rest of school, and then I won't have to worry about it. Now, if you guys have had puff coats, you know that one of the really cool things about them is they're really compressible. Like some of them come with bags, and you can shove the puff coat into a bag, and then all of a sudden your puff coat, which was the size of you, is now the size of like that you can hold it in one hand. So the puff coat was compressible, but even when I put it in my locker, it was pudging out a little bit. Like the coat was that big. So eventually I finally managed to get it in the locker. It looked fine. I went off about the rest of my day. I go to orchestra class. And after orchestra class, what I usually would do was take my violin with me and put it in my locker. Because if I had to go back to the orchestra class at the end of the school day, I probably would have made it. Because I was a short 6th grader, I would have had to fight through 7th and 8th graders, finally get down to the basement, get back up to the class, get back up to the first floor, and then catch the bus. So I was like, okay, let me try to put the coat and the violin case in my locker. Well, it wasn't working. I did the lock, it opened, I tried to put the violin case and the coat in the locker at the same time, but it wasn't fitting. And I'm starting to get anxious now because people are starting to leave class and the bell's about to ring, so I finally put my shoulder into it and just slammed it shut. Pudge it out a little bit, but I'm like, whatever, I'll worry about it later. I go off to class, 6th period, 7th period. At the end of 7th period, it's finally time for me to get my coat, get my violin, and make it off to school, make it to the bus. So I get back and I'm walking towards my locker, and usually at the end of the school day, I would have to count out what locker mine was. I don't know, because all the lockers, they look the same, they were all red. So I'd have to count out, okay, my locker is on the bottom row, it's 5th from the left. But this time I didn't have to do that, because there was just so much stuff in my locker that I was like pudging out a little bit. I was like, oh, clearly that the shaping one is fine. I immediately went over to it and I tried to undo the lock, and it wasn't open. I undid the lock and it's not open. And I'm getting really anxious now because all the kids are leaving, and this is before cell phones, so if I missed my bus, then I'd have to call my mom, 1-800-COLLECT, and be like, hey mom, I'm left at school, please come pick me up back, right? I don't know if you guys ever do that. Definitely did. And I wasn't about to walk home. Luckily, there was a teacher in the hallway who saw me struggling. She tried to undo the locker, it wasn't working. She put her shoulder into it, real good feet, did the locker, it finally came out, everything came out, like my coat came out, my violin came out, all my books, and now I'm rushing, because the buses are about to leave. I finally get outside, I'm hoping and praying that the buses are there. They are, because the way that the buses lined up was that bus 1 would line up at the top of the school, and then they'd all line up numerically down to the bottom of the school. I rode bus 500. So I was like, okay, if bus 1 is here, bus 500 is here, I can make it to my bus, I won't miss it, I won't have to walk home. Until I hear the buses all start their engines, I'm not able to really get full stride in there. So like, you have to imagine that, like a short Michelin man. Like imagine a short Michelin man, but he needs to revisit his stylist because he's like two-tone. He's like black from the collar to the shoulders, and then he's red everywhere else. And like the look on his face isn't, man, maybe I should see if there's a bathroom available. The look on his face is more like, poops are coming, right? So imagine like him speed waddling with a clench, but then he's got a book bag and a violin case, and that's basically me trying to get to my bus. And as I'm speed waddling to my bus with a clench, I'm realizing, oh wait, if all the buses are still here, that means every kid in the school is watching me speed waddle with a clench down to my bus. I finally made it, but before I stepped on my bus, I could see Katrina Owens in her perfectly white puff coat see me from out of the back of her school bus, because she was really cool, she rode in the back. And the look on her face was like, you stupid? You know, but it wasn't like, you cool stupid, it was more like, you stupid stupid? It didn't feel good. You know, every time I go home for like Christmas or Thanksgiving, I go up to the attic where my mom has stored the puff coat, and I try it on, and it's still too big. Like, I'm easily 100 pounds and 6 inches taller than I was in 6th grade, and it's still too big. Like, I don't know why she ever forced me to do that. Be smart with your money. All right, you guys, thank you so much for listening.